All right, good morning, everybody. Today we have a couple blots, starting with the parak, the third parak of Eruvin. Now we changed subjects a little bit, so we're not going to be discussing karpefs anymore or hukaf ladira. Now we're going to be discussing an erev tafshilin, or excuse me, not erev tafshilin, coming up today, but we are discussing for tchum, for an eruv, for chatzeros. So we discussed generally about the there's reasons for an eruv, for tchumen. So tchumen is basically the area that one is allowed to walk around on Shabbos, the 2,000 amos in each direction, and that goes from his makom of shvisa. That's an area where he's going to reside for Shabbos. So let's say someone is in a town, so he has the entire space of the town plus 2,000 square amos. That's pretty similar. But let's say a person is traveling or he's not around, and so normally Shabbos starts where he's at, and he has 2,000 amos in each direction. But let's say he wants to go ahead and reestablish his makom shvisa. So instead of where he's at, he wants to basically take it and start. He wants to be able to walk 3,000 in one direction. So just to go somewhere. So you can go ahead and place an eruv, some sort of meals for 2 meals in a place. And that has to be within his 2,000 amos where he's at now, and that will be his new makom. So let's say he puts it 1,000 amos to the west of him, right? So then from that space, when Shabbos starts, he has 2,000 amos to the west of that, and 2,000 to the east of that, which is basically only 1,000 where he's at. So he can basically shift over where his measuring starts from, as long as it's within his 2,000 amos now, right? Because I can't start my eruv 5,000 amos away, because then I'm not within my eruv. So it has to be within my 2,000 amos, and then I start Shabbos from there. So speaking of this type of food, b'chol marvin mishtatvin. So with all types of eruve chatzeros, right, and also shitufe, right, for in order to go ahead, basically connect chatzeros to a mavui, yards to an alleyway, right, that we're discussing. You can use all types of food, chutz min hamayim min hamelach, except for salt and water. Those are not food. Those are not sustaining food. V'akol nikach b'kesef meiser. And similarly, when it comes to kesef meiser, a person has kesef meiser sheni during this certain years, when he basically has to go ahead and take his crops and go ahead and eat them in Yerushalayim. And if it's too big of a schlep to eat them in Yerushalayim, go ahead and basically switch it out for money, go to Jerusalem, and go ahead and purchase food there. What is food there? Everything except for salt and water. Same thing here. In Hanayim, when a Muslim person makes a nether, I will not have food on this certain day. Mutter, he's also go ahead mutter with salt and water.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this food ceremonial, or do you have to have like a legitimate shelter where you're gonna go plan to eat it? It's not gonna get eaten by the animals. Like, what's this like? This food you're setting up 1,000 amos away, let's say.
It's a good question, but l'chayra, it should be food that he's going to go ahead and eat. We'll soon see in terms of how it maybe has to be. But what we have when we do erev tafshilin, right? You put the food aside, right? You want to go ahead and use the food, right? Some people eat it, some people don't, but it's something that is really made to eat, right? It's not some sort of fake out or whatever it is. It's not some sort of trick, right? It actually is real food that should be eaten and is used for eating.
Now, right, but that's not my question. Sorry, but do I have to go to this like little shelter? Like before Shabbos, I want to go to like Glencoe. So every 1,000 amos, I put a candy bar. And I have to go there and eat that candy bar?
Glencoe is right. So if Glencoe is all within, the distance, right? It doesn't, there's no extension. In other words, there is no end of a city to Glencoe. Then you really don't need it. Now you can have a large city that you can be able to walk 10,000 amos, because that's all within the town. We're only talking about beyond, right? Beyond the limits of the city, right? So if it was, that you were going beyond the city limits, then there's another halacha known as every 70 amos and 2/3, whatever it is, a certain area, you have to go ahead and put out something to extend. But like you're saying, but we'll get into the halachas there, right? But now we're just discussing simply what type of food qualifies as we have to put food out there for 2 meals. So what is this food that we're discussing? So everything is food. I eat garlics, or I eat guacamole. So that's all food. But salt and water are mixed together. Salt water is not considered to be food. Now, similarly, Marvin Lenazir. So speaking of almost on your point, Andrew, we'll get to your point, I'm sure, in the Gemara. So Marvin Lenazir biyayin. So a Nazir who basically forbids himself to have wine, he is allowed to have, right, wine in his Eruv. Even though he's not going to eat it, right? He's not going to eat it. He's not allowed to eat it, so he's not going to eat it. Or Yisrael b'Truma, or a Yisrael, right, for Truma. Yisrael is not allowed to go ahead and, even though Truma is only for a Kohen, right? Nevertheless, if Yisrael has Truma food, he can have that as his Eruv. And Subchas Amir, no, B'chulin, has to be chulin. You can't go ahead and use truma. So he argues in the point, whether he argues on Nazir, we'll have to see. With a Kohen, the base of pras, and a Kohen, let's say he wants to go ahead and put it in a base of pras. Base of pras is basically an old area which is suspected that there was graves dug there, and it was plowed over, and there might be pieces of bone and therefore a Kohen really shouldn't go there. So he's allowed to go ahead, and the Kohen can put his Eruv in a base of pras. Even between bein hakvaros, you can go ahead and put it there, because you can go ahead and put separations and walk there and maneuver without becoming tummy. So the question is, does one have to be able to go ahead and eat it or not? Or maybe it just has to be fit for human consumption. In other words, maybe a Nazir can't have it, but somebody else can have it. Or maybe for the Kohen, maybe he can't enter, but someone else can. And Simcha says, as long as he can enter, then it's no problem. So let's see the Gemara. Gemara starts off in a different direction. Amar Rabbi Yechon, ein lamidin min haklalos. V'afilu makom shenamar bo chutz. Says Rabbi Yechon, right? You're not allowed to go ahead. We don't just learn from general klalos. Now, our Mishnah says basically a general rule, right? B'chol marvin mishtatvin, right? With everything, you can go ahead and make an eruv and a shituf, right? And to use for the eruv, you can use all type of food. So it's giving you a rule. So he says you can't necessarily learn from those rules. And even if it says chutz, except for, notice you sound like, if something gives a rule and it says except for this, it sounds like that rule it's a pretty tight rule. In other words, it's pretty accurate. Nope, not necessarily. There still could be things that you can learn from him. So by the fact he said even in a place where it says chutz, it sounds like it's not going in our Mishnah, right? Because our Mishnah says chutz. Our Mishnah says b'chol marvin mishtatvin chutz min hamayim. It says clearly. So it sounds like when he says even in a place where it says except, you can't follow the rule. Now, even in a place where except sounds like he's not talking about our Mishnah, because our Mishnah has a place where it says chutz, right? So he must be maybe talking about another place where it says a general rule, and he says you can't follow that general rule, and even other places where it says chutz, you can't. So what case is he going in? So the Gemara says, anytime there's a mitzvah shazan grama, anytime you have a mitzvah that is bound by a certain time, right? It has to be a certain time frame. So men are chayiv and women are p'turos. Shalo hazan grama echad nashiv echad nashim chayiv. However, if it's not a mitzvah shazan grama, if it's not something which is set by the time, then all men and women are chayiv. So the Gemara says, is this a rule? I'll give you examples. Is this a rule? That all mitzvahs say that the women are bound by time is not the women are patur from. Hare matzah. What about matzah, right? The matzah are only obligated to eat matzah at a certain time, right? The night of Pesach is our commandment to eat matzah, and women are chayiv. And Simcha and Simchas Yantav. This is a special halacha by Simchas Yantav. So that's only during the holiday days. It's not today. There's no mitzvah Simchas Yantav. So it's bound by time. Nevertheless, women are chayiv. Bakel, and also going ahead and for at the end of the Shemitah year, every 7 years, to go ahead and listen to the king go over there, go to the Beis Hamikdash, and they read from the Sefer Dvarim. So that's also even though it's a specific time, women are obligated. And similarly, the mitzvah say shazman gramahu, the nashim chayavos. We see what these are mitzvah say shazman grama, and women are chayiv. And now the other side, b'chol mitzvah say shalazman grama nashim chayavos. What about harei Talmud Torah? What about Talmud Torah? Talmud Torah, there is no time. It's day and night all the time. The women are not obligated in Talmud Torah, prayer via. or having children, that's not their obligation, that's an obligation on the man who paid in our bed, and also to go ahead and redeem the firstborn. If there's a mother, right, she's not obligated to go ahead and redeem her firstborn. The mitzvah say shalos man grom v'nashim peturos, right? That this is a mitzvah say that's not bound by time, and women are patur. Rather, it must be that we can't learn from general rules, right? Even if it gives an exception, but perhaps there are more exceptions. Now, Amar Abaye v'itema Rabbi Yirmiyah. So says Abaye, so says Rabbi Yirmiyah. Afananam Tanina. We also learned Oid Klal Acher Amru, another rule. Kol Shenisa Al Gabi Hazav Tamei V'Chol Hashazav Nisa Lav Tahor. Right. Another rule that anything that is carried right by a zav is tamei, even if he doesn't make direct contact, right? And anything that is carrying a zav, even if he does not make contact with it, is considered to be tahor. Chutz min haroy l'mishkav v'moshav, except for something that is fit for someone to go ahead and sit on, or or lie on, right? The ha'adam, and also a person, right? Person is also, he would not, right? There's such a case, would not, such a case, also, it would be tamei if he carries a zav. As the Gemara says, v'sulak, and there's no other exceptions. There's no chutz, v'ha'ika, merkav, right? What about something which is used for riding? What do you mean something that's used for riding? So if it's used for sitting, let's say like a saddle, right? So that's moshav. We just said chutz min haroy mishkav moshav. So Gemara says no. Anahachi coming this meaning to say ha'ika gabad uchva, right? There's a part at the front of the saddle that he doesn't sit on, but that part in the front, right? That we learn of the time learned by Sa'ukaf Tameh, Moshav, Vatafus Tameh Merkaf, right? That is said over there that the saddle itself is Tameh, Tumas Moshav, and the Tafus, the thing that he holds on to, is Tameh with this Merkaf type of Tuma. So, the Merkaf Tuma is not something which was listed. It only says Chutz min Roy Mishkav Moshav Adam. It didn't say Chutz min Ha'ukav. Therefore, we learn from here that even though, right, it says the word chutz, therefore there are other exceptions to things that are tamei, that this tafas is still tamei tumas merkav. Now, so that was another case where there was a general rule, and which nothing to do with Erevin, just a general rule from a Mishnah in by Tuman Tahara, where you can't. There are other exceptions, even though it says the word chutz. Now, let's bring it back to Erevin. And Amar Avinu Mitim Rav Nachman Avanam Tanina B'chol Marvin Mishtatzim Chutz Min Hamayim V'Hamelach. Right, everything you can use Erev or for a Shitavi Mavui, except for water and salt. I v'sulaka v'ha'ika Kamina Petrius. Right. What about truffles and mushrooms? That those things that don't necessarily grow from the ground, and therefore you can't use those for an Erev. Rather, it must be that we don't learn from general rules in order to, and you can't just assume something is part of the general rule, because there are other exceptions, even when specific exceptions are listed. Fine. Next case, 2 dots. Now, hakol nikach b'kesef meiser. Now, anything can be brought with kesef meiser. Now, as we mentioned before, kesef is the money used for meiser sheni, right? Meiser, the first meiser is basically you take a tenth. The second, you take a tenth, and that second tenth in years 1, 2, 4, 5 are eaten Yerushalayim. And if you can't, you take that money. Take those crops and redeem it for money, or quote unquote sell it back to you with money. Now you have whatever value of that meiser sheni is now with the money. Take that money and go ahead and buy food in Jerusalem. What is food? So we said everything but salt and water. Now, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yesi, Bar Chanina, there's a machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Chanina. Chad masni eruv, the chad masni meiser. One learns, he taught this case about water and salt, or what they're going to say about eruv, and the other one says he was going on the case of meiser sheni, and both those actually were listed in our Mishnah. So chad masni eruv lo yishanel mayim b'fnei atzon melech b'fnei atzon. We're only talking about salt by itself or water by itself. But if you go ahead and you make salt water, then that's considered to be a food, right? That's a food because you can go ahead and, let's say, dip your bread in or whatever you want to use it for. You can use it along with some of your foods. Therefore, it's considered to be a food. And therefore, you can use it for an Erev. And some said that he taught this rule when it comes to Ma'aser Sheni. You can't go ahead and buy with the money either salt or water. You can buy it. But the two of them together, salt water, you can't go ahead and purchase it. Now, the one who said that this halacha had to do only, he stated in the case of Ma'aser, certainly, right, if you can say salt water is good for using for Ma'aser Sheni, certainly it's good, salt water is good for using it for an Eruv. But the one who said that only that salt water is good for Eruv, nevertheless, he would not say the halacha applies to a Ma'aser Sheni. So why is that? So my timer. So what's the reason? So peirim be'inon. Because when it comes to Ma'aser Sheni, it has to be something which is similar to a fruit, a peirim, and therefore this is not similar to a fruit. Fruit has certain qualifications, as we'll soon see, and therefore one would not be able to go ahead and use salt water for kesef Ma'aser Sheni. Now, Kiyas Rabbi Yisrael Masni Ma'aser. So Rabbi Yisrael came and he taught this halacha that salt water can be used at time of Ma'aser. So Zekasha Hey Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish Lifnei Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish we're going to be mentioning for the next Amar or so. So let's remember this case. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish says Lifnei Rabbi Eliezer Shabbeis Abba Hayeloichin Sir Bekasef Ma'aser. So the house of my father, they used to go ahead and buy, right, with the kesef Ma'aser Sheni. They used to go ahead and buy tzir, right? We discussed tzir for a fish brine, right? They used to go ahead. So in other words, they would use that with kesef Ma'aser Sheni. So Amarlo, Shemaloi Shemata, Ella, Shakirav Dagim, Morvim Behen. No. Now is this brine, right? The reason why it was mutter, right, was because perhaps there was mixed in there, right? The innards are of fish into it, right? That's the reason why the fish brine was good, right? But if it was just salted, or right, salt and water with it, then you couldn't go ahead and use it. So afilu Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish l'kamer ela b'tzir the shumna the perihu, and he even only said it only with tzir, right? With this brine, right? That was basically similar to, it was like shumna the perihu, right? It was something the fat of the fruit of a mayim melachlo, right? But if it was just salt water, then he would not be able to go ahead and use it. So we see that when it comes to kesef Ma'aser Sheni, right, you cannot use only if there was basically fish guts in there, right? The schmaltz from the fish. But if it's just salt and water, then it would not be able to be permitted to be purchased. And Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, right, top of Chav Zayin and Beis, Lo Nitzacha Ella Shenasan L'Seich Hashem, right? He says that, maybe he's only talking about that which he said is mutter to go ahead and Rabbi Yitzchak said that you mix water and salt together, you can go ahead and purchase it with kesef Ma'aser Sheni. It's only when it's also, in addition to the salt and the water, is also oil, right? Oil is in it, right? So if that's the case, that's because of Shemin. So no. In other words, the chiddush is there. It wasn't just oil, because in other words, regular oil, let's say, cost $1, and the oil with salt and water is more. So therefore, he paid $1.50. So obviously, the salt and water was included in the price, and therefore that was through havla, right? Havla means to absorb, right? And so therefore. We say that basically salt and water was also purchased, used because of Ma'aser Sheni, because there was oil along with it. Where it says, "Ayu b'havla mi shari," and as havla is a mutter. See, he says, "Yeah." Well, Tanya, as we learned, so ben bag oimer, babakar. The pasuk says babakar. Right? Let me see the pasuk. Right, the pasuk is on the side. Those of you that are scroll, we'll just. I'm just going to read the pasuk first. So the pasuk over there says, "V'nasata kesef b'chol asher taven nafshecha." Right. So the pasuk referring to kesef Ma'aser Sheni. Right, says you give the money, which you desire, babakar, ubatzon, beyayin, b'shecher, and it lists 4 things. Just say whatever you want. Why did he go ahead and list cattle and sheep and wine and shecher and type of drink? Right, so it says right, and whatever you want, you go ahead and purchase. But why does it list 4 specific things? So we're gonna see the entire drasha. But first it says by bakar with cattle, right? It says bakar al gav oro. So you see over there, you can go ahead and use that money to go ahead and buy. Let's see, a big meat, right? A cattle, right? You got a lot of money, $500 to buy cattle, and attached to the dead animal, right, is also its hide, right? And even though, right, you don't eat the hide, nevertheless, you're allowed to go ahead and pay $500 for the dead cow, right? And even though it includes, it's not all meat, it's not all food, it's not $500 of food because there is hide attached to it. It says over there, batzon, also we darshan the word batzon, al gav gizasa. You can go ahead and buy the sheep, even though there's the wool attached to it. You can go ahead and buy a barrel of wine, even though at the end you're going to end up with a barrel. You can keep the barrel, right? It's also a sheikha. Sheikha also says, which is an old type of wine. You can go ahead and basically keep the vinegar, right? You can use it for vinegar. Even after it becomes vinegar, nevertheless, that is considered to be okay as a purchase. So we see over here, right, that we are basically using havla is allowed to go ahead. It's even something which is not necessarily edible, such as salt and water, as we said, because those alone. Nevertheless, if it's included with others, we permit it, just like the hides or or these other cases where we include it. Now, speaking of this brisa, we're just going to get distracted for a minute before we come back to discussing Kesef Ma'aseh. So Amar Rabbi Yechon, Mani B'Targlim B'Bakar Aliba de Ben Bagbag Muvlina Mani Abase Lebei Mesusa. So it says Rabbi Yechon, whoever explains to me, right, the necessity of Ben Bagbag's darshaning of the word B'Bakar, I will go ahead and basically I'll owe him a big favor. I'll even carry his clothes to the bathhouse for him. Why? My time. What's the reason? Because all the really, if you really think about it, if you darshan the pasuk, all the words are necessary except for babakar, right? With cattle, right? You can spend your money on cattle. That seems to be superfluous. If you didn't have the word bakar, we know the same amount. So no, now we're explaining. So what do you mean tzricha? If it just said babakar, havamina bakar hudamizavin le al gavara shundugufahu. Maybe I'd say, okay, the reason why it comes with the cattle, I can go ahead and use it right, kesef ma'aseh sheni, and hides included, is because it's attached to it, right? It's part of the body, right? The part of you're buying the animal for the meat, right? The hide is attached to the body. About son, agav gizas av gufahu, but the wool on the sheep is not really part of the body, right? That's like on the outside, that's the hair. And maybe I'd say I have to go ahead and share the sheep, or can include that in the price. Therefore, it teaches you that. Because of when it's so, if it just said so, agav gizasa, right? The havi amina mishundim mechubaru. I would say, okay, the wool of the sheep is okay. Why? Because the wool is still attached to the sheep. But when it comes to a wine in a barrel, right? Right? When it comes to wine in a barrel, right? Then when it comes to a wine, the barrel is not, the wine is not attached to the barrel, right? So maybe you have to go ahead and discard the contents of the barrel. So maybe that's it. Therefore, it says yain, because of yain. It says yain havamina mishum dahainu nitiruse. Maybe the wine in the barrel is included because that's the way you guard the wine. You guard the wine by putting it in the barrel. About temet. But once you have this temed mishahichmitz, right? Once it becomes vinegar, it ferments, right? Kiyuma be'almahu emelo, right? I would say, right, that you should not be included, right? You don't need it at all. So therefore, kasav rachmana shechar. Therefore, the Torah says shechar to tell you that that even this, once it goes bad, right, and you have the fermented grapes along with it, it's all included. So we see all these cases that are included. Now, what's the kasha now? So kasha is because of Rahman. Now goes back the other way. Because of Rahman b'sheichar havamina my sheichar. What would I have said with the word sheichar? Maybe it wouldn't have meant this type of fermented wine. It would have been havim in my sheichar the vela kios the peiru. Maybe I would think it was this sheichar is like sort of like a beer, like a pressed figs or something like that, right? So therefore. All right, but maybe only pressed figs, only those together that if it becomes you use kesef ma'aseh sheni, right? That it refers to something which is still basically a type of fruit, right? It was still part of these pressed figs. But if it was wine with the barrel, I would say it wouldn't work because of rachmana yain agavi kankano. If it just said the wine. All right, the Haina Terusa, that was the way I was watching it about son. Al is the same low, but you can go ahead and shear the animal, be fine. All right, therefore it says the word son, you needed to teach you that. But however, babakar lamali, why do I need the drush of a bakar, right? If I can go ahead and basically have a sheep, right, and include the wool, right? Certainly, if I have cattle, right, I can go ahead and keep the hide, right? So what's the chiddush of the word bebakar? So that was what he said. I will offer anybody. So like says, okay, one suggestion. The Rebbe, asked the kasha as a challenge. So as one attempt, maybe like this. Maybe if they don't write the word bakar, maybe the word son. Right now, sheep also have hide, right? They just have a thinner hide, and then they have the wool on top of it. So maybe when it said the word tson, it was only referring to the hide of the sheep, right? But not its wool. So therefore, kazach one of bakar lasui oro tson lasui gizasa. Therefore, maybe I wouldn't have known hide. I would have thought it was only hide. But now once it says but bakar, now bakar teaches me hide, and sheep teaches me. Then the sheep would teach me the wool. So Gemara says ilo kasav bakar. So wait. So if it didn't write bakar, lo have a minat son agavi arain agavi gisasalo. Right. So I wouldn't have thought that. Right. No. If it just wrote the word, if the Torah didn't write bakar, right, I wouldn't have thought that son just meant its hide and not its wool, right? Because only hide is included, not wool. Why? Because that's the case. If you're just trying to teach that they can use the kesem ma'aseh to purchase hide along with the animal, just not the wool. Say an animal that has only hide and no wool, such as bakar. So the Torah should just run bakar and leave out the word son. The mele has that son, and therefore, of course, I know that sheep, right? You can go ahead and use its hide and right, and not its wool. Right, became the chassid rachmanat son, the afila gizas, and therefore, since the Torah wrote son sheep to teach you even with its sharings, but bakar lamali, right? Why do you need the word bakar? So hashit son agav gizas mizdava bakar agav arav mibai. So therefore, now it teaches you sheep. So once I know sheep that has the hide, right? Certainly, the bakar that has the so once it is sheep that has the wool, certainly I know the bakar that has the hide. So that's the reason to come Rabbi Yochanan right? The one who goes ahead and teaches me the reason why bakar is included. I will go ahead and carry his clothes because it goes circular. Because you can't, if you have them both, it seems to be extra. And if you only have one of them, right, I would have been able to learn it out without it. So therefore, he says it seems to be extra. Fine. Now let's go back to our case of, as I mentioned, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, we mentioned earlier that he says in his house, his father's house, they used the kesem ma'aseh for a fish brine, but we said only because there was fats in it. So by Kamifli, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Eliezer, right, that which they argue, Vahani tonight to the common, and also these tonight later on. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Eliezer, Darshi Ribu Yemiyuti, Vahani tonight, Darshi Klali Prati, right? So it's going to go the way that they learned from the Psukim. The way they understand from the Psukim, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish is going to, and Rabbi Eliezer, they darshan a ribu yumiyut, right? A ribu yumiyut. In other words, there's two ways to darshan Torah, right? So one is a ribu yumiyut, right? So ribu is, it means to include, right? Ribu miyut is specific, right? And ribui again is general. So in other words, if something goes right, and the other one darshan's a klal darshan klal prati. That was a general rule, right? Then then specific, and then general. So they're both very similar, but their mechanisms, the way they work, are differently. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, let's do them first. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Eliezer darshi ribu miyut. The darshan is a ribu miyut. Also, it says v'nasata hakesa b'chol asher tava nafshecha. Right, right. So it says, and go ahead and give money for everything that your soul desires. That is a riba, right? That is an include, right? That's riba that includes everything, right? And now, how is that, right? Because it says whatever you want, right? That's a very general term. Then it says babakar, batson, v'yayin, v'shechar. Then it starts to limit it, right? Everything you want, cattle, sheep. So then only list specific things. So those things, that is a miyut, right? That is a miyut, and that's a b'chol v'sher tishachol nafshecha. Then everything which what you want, you go ahead and you take. Chazav riba gives another riba. So riba umiyat v'riba hakol. So this, what is the rule? It includes everything. So my Rabbi, Rabbi Komile. So what does it go ahead to include? Right, it includes everything. Well, my miyot, and what does it exclude? Rabbi Eliezer miyot tzir. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it excludes tzir, which is the fish brine, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish miyot mayu melech. That excludes salt water, right? So one says it excludes the fish brine, which cannot be included, and the other one says it includes fish brine is okay. It only excludes salt and water. Now, Vahani tonight, the Darshi Klali Prati. So according to so that was the ones who darshan a ribu mute. Vahani tonight, the Darshi Klali Prati. Then those tonight, right? We'll soon see. They learn is a klal prat. The Tanya says v'nasa kesa b'chol asher tav nafshecha is a klal. V'vakarotan v'yayim v'sheichar is a prat. B'chol asher tishachol nashevcha chazar v'klal. Right. So then basically it includes each one. Instead of darshaning as a ribui mute, it darshans as a klal prat. And therefore, klal prat to klal, iyata dan elokeina prat, right? A klal prat is a little more exclusive, right? So therefore, it darshans everything only similar to the prat, to the specific, right? And the specifics were bakar, son, yain shechar, mara pramafurish, primi pri vigidule karka. Just like the specific was something, right? It's a pre-made pre, right? It comes right from it's a seed, right? It's a fruit that comes from its fruit, right? It comes from its kind. And is grown from the ground and nourishes from the ground, right? Animals also, right, nourish from the ground. They eat from the ground, right? Like the tzona bakar. So to everything that, right, is basically fruit from a fruit, and or comes from its kind, and also grows from the ground or nourishes from the ground. V'tanya idach ma hapramafurish vlad vlados aretz. And there was another brayse that says, right, so that was one brayse. Another brayse says ma hapramafurish. So this is according to this. Now there's two Tanaim that learn this this klal prat, right? So one says, okay, anything similar to the prat to the specific rule. So the first rule, according to the first brayse, was Primi pri and gedule karka. All right, that was the trait of the specific. And according to the second brayse, navatani idach ma pram befurish vlad vlados aretz. Right, it's considered to be something that that comes from the ground. Right, vlad vlados aretz. Avkol vlad vlados. So too, that anything that is basically vlad vlados, something is generated from the ground. So my benayu, what's the difference between vlad vlados aretz and primi pri gedule karka? So Amar Abaye dogim igabanayu, fish, right? So the first havamina is fish is a difference. Now we just came out to another machlokes, so now we have to put. Now originally we had the whole machlokes between fish brine and salt and how they darshan what kesamai sasheni is. So now they says no, according to the one who holds the klal prat, we exclude something else. So now we have to understand this klal prat, this machlokes between two of the brises, and now we'll get back to the other one. So now, according to these two brises, who understands the klal prat, what's the difference between these brises? So first, we want to say that it's fish. So lamad demar primi privi gedule karka hainu dagim gedule karka ninu. According to the one who says primi pri and gedule karka, so fish, in essence, right? They are nourished from the ground. I guess they pick and eat from stuff that grows in the ground. However, the mandim of love loves aretz dogim imay ivru, right? But they were created from the water. They were not created from the earth. And since they were not created from the earth, they're not considered to be vlad vlados aretz. So therefore, it's not included in that. So fish would not be able to be purchased with kesef ma'aser sheni. They're excluded. It's not similar to the ones the specific ones that are listed. Or ask me, Amar Abaye, dogim gedule karka ninu, and does Abaye hold that fish are considered to be gedule karka? Right, fish are gedule karka, then to be included. Right, Amar Abaye, didn't Abaye say achol patusa or putisa? If one goes ahead and eats putisa, right, that's a type of sheretz that's in the water, some type of qualifies as a creepy crawler of the sheretz, but of the water, very small, right? The tiny. Like arba, you get four malchus. And why is that? You get 4. You get 2 for a general rule of eating any sheretz. Any sheretz, you get there's 2 malchus for that, and there's additional 2 lafim of eating water shrutzim, right? And all the psukim are listed in the Rashi and also in the art school. There's the psukim here. So there's 4 for that, for eating a water sheretz. And namola, when it comes to an ant, right? It's like chamish, right? There's actually 5. There's 2 for the general shratzim. Then there's actually 3 for land shratzim, right? So that's a total of 5. If one eats an ant, even though an ant is not a kazayas, nevertheless you eat the whole thing, you get 5 sets of malchus. And sira, right? And sira is a flying bug, right? If it's a flying bug, so like a shesh, you get 6 because there's 2 for eating the general sheretz prohibition. That's 2. Then you get 3 for a sira. A fly also is on the land, and also there's an additional flying lav, right? There's an additional one for flying, right? Chol sheretz ha'oif, any sheretz of a bird, a flying one, you get another set of malchus. Now, v'imisa, if Abaye holds that fish are really generated from the ground, Petusa nami luka mishum hasheretz ha'aretz. Shouldn't they also get malchus for coming from the land? You just defined as the fish coming really from gedulei karka, from the land, so they should be also included in the land shratza, but it's not. So it must be, you can't say that the fish is really gedulei karka. So don't say fish is an afkamina between, right, pre and gedulei karka versus vlad vlados aretz, right? Rather, say it must have been ela maravina oifos igibnaya, right? Birds are the nafkamis. Lamad dem pre gedulei karka haninam gedulei karka. They also are sustained from the ground. Lamad dem vlad vlados aretz. However, those who say that they were produced from the earth, that hani oifos min harakak nivro, right? They came from the rakak, they came from between the heavens and the earth. They didn't come from the ground, rather they came from above, and therefore they're not included. Now, man the ma'arve ofos, my time. So one who includes the birds, right? What's the reason? And the one who says no, excludes them. What's the reason? So now we're asking in the klalu prat, right? We had the difference. One says it was primi gedulei karka, and the other, and so it includes birds, and the other one excludes birds because it has to be something which is vlad vlados haaretz. Why do they learn it that way, right? What is the reason why they learn it that way? So the one who learns marbe ofos, he holds klal basra dafka, right? The last klal is dafka, right? That's the last general is the main one, right? And really it should have been a pratu klal, right? It was a pratu klal. So and a pratu klal is nasa klal moisiv ala prat. When you have something which is not 3 steps, right? We had 3 steps. We had general, right? Specific, general. But if you have only 2, right? A general and a specific. So it makes a difference as to what came first, what was the order. So if you hold that it was basically the main klal was the last klal. So therefore you had a specific, and then you had the klal. And that's considered to be a pratu klal. And nasa klal umaisif ala prat. That's considered to be basically that the rule adds to the prat. And includes everything. And therefore, when you have now the first, right, a less important klal that comes before the prat, right? So this klal comes, anything that's not similar to it, basically in all aspects on both sides. And therefore, so we'll say that the bird is not similar to the to those that are listed. And therefore it's more specific. And the one who excludes birds holds klal kamadafka, right? That the first klal is the general rule, or klal prat, and therefore is really a klal prat. Vein b'chal al mashar prat, and therefore you should only include in the general rule that which is specified as the prat. Sahani midechini lo, only things vahani klal, and therefore you have the second klal. And therefore it comes the third one, and it says no, not only the 2 sides, but it has to basically be very, very similar to it. And therefore, since birds are not as similar to those that were listed, so therefore the birds are excluded. So therefore, the reason why there's a machlokas tanaim as to how to learn this klal praus, because as to the way that they learned that really it was either a pratu klal, and then a klal came before that, or it was a klalu prat, right? And then a klal came after it. So in other words, which was the main important one? And that teaches you how narrow or how general we are in the klal prat. And that's the reason why they argue as to whether birds are included or not. Fine. Now we go back. So put that discussion behind us. how to darshan klal prat, or whether it's ribo miyot according to the first opinion. And now we have the first case. So Amar Rav Yehuda Mishmei. So the two dots right in the middle of Kavches Amar Aleph. So Amar Rav Yehuda Mishmei Derav Shmuel Bar Shiles Mishmei Derav Marvin be Papuin v'chal Galois v'chal Lagos Lagos, right? U begud gadnios, right? You can go ahead and these types of basically spices that are used. So you can make an eruv with these type of spices. One is some type of herb, right? And purslane or coriander, right? We're going to discuss some of these. Avaloi v'chazis v'loi b'kafnios. But now we can't go ahead and use chazis is described as green grain, and kafnios are the dates that do not mature, right? They don't ripen. So first the Gemara has uve good ganios mi marvin, and do we go ahead and I would go ahead and make an eruv? Is this coriander considered to be a food for an eruv? But Tana in the Brisa, good ganios merube banim yeichlu chashuche banim lo yeichlu, right? These good ganios, if someone already has a lot of children, you can go ahead and eat coriander. As coriander is, I guess, is not good for somebody who's trying to have children, right? It will affect, I guess, his ability. So if he already has a lot of kids, then you can go ahead and eat no problem. However, if he doesn't have kids yet and he wants to fill the mitzvah of Peravu, then he should not go ahead and eat coriander. Bim hukshu, lazera. And however, if the coriander itself became hard, right, lazera, for the seeds, even some of his kids, he shouldn't eat it because it's not healthy. It's not good for you, and therefore he shouldn't eat it. So we see over here that it's not really a good food. One should not eat it. So why are you saying you can use it for an eruv? So now the Gemara says Tarkima. So okay, maybe explain the case. When do we say you can use it for an eruv? Maybe when it wasn't hard, right? Maybe when it didn't harden yet, so knows it's not dangerous. And we're talking about somebody who has many kids. He can use it as an eruv. Can say, or maybe it's somebody without kids. Even somebody who doesn't have kids, but since it's fit for others, like we saw earlier, right? Maybe a Yisrael can use truma, or maybe a Nazir can use wine. So too, somebody, even though he can't, right? He hasn't had kids yet, he wants to have kids, and he's not going to eat it, but it's fit for others who already have kids. Right? Didn't we teach that a person can be a Nazir? Can you go ahead and use wine for an eruv? Because others, he can feed others, or Yisrael can use truma because he can feed kohanim. So to over here, the guy without kids can go ahead because he shouldn't eat this because I guess maybe it sterilizes you or whatever it is. He can go ahead and give other people. And hachanami, even though it's not fit for him, it's fit for others. And or I can give you another teretz. Kikama Rav. Right? Maybe he's talking about different stocks, the ones from Madai, right? The ones from Madai, maybe those were better ones weren't as dangerous, and therefore not as dangerous. Therefore, you can go ahead and eat them. Now, one of the things he said you can't use for an eruv was chazis, right? Sounds like those things are not you can't have, is because it's not considered to be food. You have a chazis low, and you can't go ahead and have chazis. Right? So the green grain, right? And hops, right? Kshus are hops, right? And this chazis is green grain. You can go ahead and you can use it for an eruv, and you make hadam on it, right? It's food. So like kasha, the mekame dasa Rav in Bavel, halabasa dasa Rav in Bavel. So one was, I guess, before Rav went to Bavel, he didn't realize. He thought that you couldn't eat it, and then went to Bavel. He saw the people in Bavel ate it, so therefore he realized it was a food. Therefore, you can use it for an eruv, and therefore you can go ahead and make break adama. So like Bavel havi rubadam. I understand. So just because they ate in Bavel, it's considered that's the majority of the world. But Tana in the Brisa hapolva sort of tilton of the shazar and the yarek. If you go ahead and you have beans and barley and tilson, right, and fenugreek, those were going ahead and they were planted for vegetables, right? Now, usually that was not necessarily the purpose of planting them, right? So they were going to go ahead and use basically the seeds for to plant for greens and not have them as the seeds itself. But lo daito etzel alkohol, right? It's not, since it wasn't the normal use of the crop. Therefore, even though they did for one reason, it's batal, right? And the fichach, therefore, zaron chayev. So therefore, in the case there, the seeds from them, which the main parts are really, those are chayev for meiser, right? And the yarkan pater, and those, and the plants that were not ripe yet, those are pater, even though that was the reason why they did it, because batal etzel kol adam, right? And hashkalim and cress, the hagargir, right? And type of also another type of growth, right? Garden rocket, shazar and yarek, right? That was also planted for the purpose of vegetables. Bisasrin, yarek, vizera. Both of them, you take meiser of both the for the yarek, right, for the vegetation that grows, and also for the seed. And zara and zera, if you went ahead and you planted it for their seed, bisasrin zera v'yarek. Also, you go ahead and use it for either way, because both ways are used. But nevertheless, we see by the other ones, by the beans, right? And it was not basically used for its greens, rather it's used for the unripened seeds. So those, and the barley. So those, nevertheless, we go like the general usage and not like the usage of specific people. So the kash is in Bavel, just because they ate it doesn't make it a food. So our answer is, okay, come Rav. So when did Rav say it? He's talking about, right? Bidignuyasa, right? Bidignuyasa, right? Type of green grains, right? That ones, I guess, which the type that were eaten, right? There were certain types from the garden that came from the garden that are more edible, and those are the ones that could be used for the Eruv. And zera gargir l'maychazu. So what is the seeds from the gargir? What does that fit for? What is this, the garden rocket? Some Rabbi Yechon sheked rishonim shelo hayu lehem pipulim, people that didn't have pepper. We used to go ahead and grind it and basically dip their food in it in place of pepper. So you see the garden rocket was edible, similar to pepper. And Rab Zera, one time when Rab Zera, when he was too tired to go ahead and learn, he needed a lot of strength to go ahead and learn, not just, wasn't relaxed, but he needed a lot of strength to learn. He says, if I can't learn, at least, right, because I need a lot of energy to learn, at least I have enough energy, I can go ahead and stand by the entrance of the base medrash, and when the Rabbanim walk by, I'll stand up and at least get rewards that way. So obviously you see that for them, they need more energy to learn than just merely standing up. Some people might be opposite, right? They're too tired to stand, but I can sit, and listen to a shir. No, obviously the way he learned was very, right, he was very active, and he needed it, right? So he wasn't able to learn, but he was still able to stand for others. So Navik also Yunuk the Rav. So a kid was walking by. So Amarlei Ma Gamarcha Rabcha. So what did your Rebbe teach you? So Amarlei Kashus Berei Prihadama Chazis Shahakol Ne'abidvarim. He taught that Kashus or hops. The bracha on that is Berei Prihadama, and Chazis and the green grain that we've been discussing is Shahakol. So Amarlei Adarabba. So Reb Zera started arguing with this child. I said opposite, actually. You can say pufakir. The other way around. Hi me'ara kamarbi. So he said maybe that the chazis really comes from the ground. That should be shakol that should be brevi adama. The high and the hops mevir kamarbi. They get nourished from the air. The hops get nourished, right? Because they're at the end of the bushes, and therefore that's more logical to say that's a shahakol than a hadama. However, the halacha is like that which the Rebbe taught the student, and like my timer was the reason. Hi, Gemar Pere, hi, lo Gemar Pere, right? So he said over there when it comes to the hops, so that's the type that's the end product, and since it's the end product, therefore it's Brepi Adama. My the Kamarta Hi Me'ara Karabi. And that what you said, the green grain grows from the ground, right? So he says, "V'hai ma'avira karabi." And then when it comes to the air, lo, it's not true. Shus nami ma'avira karabi, right? The hops even calls it from the ground. Why? He's a masa. If you go ahead and you cut down the bush that the hops are growing from, then ma'isik shusa, then the hops will die. So you see, the hops are not obviously getting all its nourishment from the air. The hops are getting their nourishment from the ground, and therefore it would be proper to make a brei priyadama on the hops. Now, going back to the Bryce that we said earlier, we said one of the things that he can't, one of the examples we said of chutz, we said, right, levi chazis v'levi kafnios, right? You don't make an eruv not on chazis, right, and the green grains which you just discussed, and also these kafnios which are basically non-maturing dates, right? Non-maturing dates, those you do not use for an eruv because it's not considered to be food. So I've Tanya, we learn in the Bryce that says kor, right? Hearts of palm, nikach bekesef meiser, right? Is purchased with kesef meiser, right? Now I don't know if this is. I guess the heart of this grew on a palm tree, right? Grew on a palm tree. I guess they would remove it before it hardens, right? If it would harden, then basically it would stay part of it, become like the tree. But if you cut off early enough, then you could eat this core. So it's the heart of palm. So he says over there, because you can use it for kesef meiser. However, it's not matami to masoichlin. It qualifies for food in terms of ma'aser sheni, but it doesn't qualify for food when it comes to tumas eichlin, right? Only certain things can become tameh, right? Food is one example of food. So if it's food, it can become tameh. However, it does not qualify as food to become tameh. The kafnios, right? In these non-maturing days, nikachas bekesef ma'aser, mitamas tumas eichlin. Those can be purchased with kesef ma'aser, and it's mitameh tumas eichlin. So what do you see from over here? It's considered to be full-fledged food. Full-fledged food, it should be able to be used as an eruv. And Rabbi Yehuda says, kor harehu ke'etz l'chol dvar. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, kor, the heart of palm, that is something that's considered to be like wood. It's like wood, and therefore not at all. But you can go ahead and purchase it with kesef ma'aser sheni. Right, so we'll soon say that l'chara it's the same thing. We just said the l'chara there's no disagreement because they both said it can be kesef ma'aser sheni, but it's not food because it's not matami, right? The kafnios harei hein kapri l'chol devreim, and when it comes to the kafnios, these non-maturing dates, then it's like l'chol devreim. It's for everything that's considered food. Elish p'turos min ma'aser, but it's patur min ma'aser. You don't have to take ma'aser from it when it grows. Now, so what do you see over here? We see over here that this kafnios is considered to be food. So it says, Hasam over there, benis chane, right? We're talking about when it comes to nischane, right? Type of tree, right? Rashi says these are the kolam zacharim, right? These are male trees. Sha'is kafnios ve'nam nasas tamar, right? They only make these non-maturing dates. They don't make full-fledged dates. So therefore, this is what comes of these types of two different types of these trees, and this doesn't give off the good fruit. This only gives off the bad fruit. Therefore, it calls it these zacharim. So it gives these. It comes from here. So since these, this is the most ripe dates from this type of tree, therefore maybe it's considered to be a fruit. Then, so if that's the case, right? Would Rabbi Yehuda say, even though this is fruit, Rabbi Yehuda says you're still patur from ma'aser? But time learn Rabbi Yehuda, lo huskru page beisoni. Right? They said that these non-maturing type of figs, right, from a certain place, right, from Beis Yoni, right, those Elin Meiser Bilvat, right, and Page Beis Yoni v'Hani Tivuni Chayvim Meiser. Even though, right, they were patur for other things as fruits, nevertheless we see they're Chayv for Meiser. So it's over here. If we're talking about these types of dates that didn't mature, right? There's no difference in the figs that didn't mature. And Rabbi Yehuda would say you're chayiv in meiser. So how can Rabbi Yehuda say it's considered to be fruit except you're patur for meiser? He would say you're chayiv for meiser. So elo liyelam la b'nischani. Rather, we're not talking about right these non-maturing dates are from trees that don't give off maturing dates. Rather, we're talking about. All right, right? When it comes to tumas eichlin, it's different. So since it's something that can be basically changed, right, through fire, if you heat something up, then you can make it more edible. So to over here, since over here that these non-maturing dates, they're non-maturing dates, and they're from a regular date tree, but they're non-maturing dates, those are considered to be food, and therefore you make a hadam on it. Why is that? Because you can go ahead and heat them up. Since you have the ability to heat them up, therefore it's considered to be a full-fledged fruit. But you can't use it as an eruv. And we'll soon see why. Where Rabbi Yechon says as long as you heat them up, then it's a fruit. So, and this is what you learned. Shkedim hamarim katanim chayavim. If you have, right, shkedim hamarim, right? Shkedim are nuts or almonds, hamarim, right, which are bitter. So katanim chayavim gedolim betur, right? Small ones, right, are chayav in meiser, right, and the gedolim and the large ones are pturin, are patur, right? So the small ones are chayav in meiser, right, because really they're just bitter because they haven't fully grown, but really it's a real type of almond. And the large ones that are bitter, right? The reason why is because they're fully matured and they're bitter and they're not good. So since they're not good, therefore it's not considered food, or it's not real edible food, and therefore you don't have to take ma'aser from. And misukim, if these almonds were sweet, not bitter ones, but they're sweet, gedolim chayavim, then if they're full-fledged grown ones, then you're chayiv, right? Which is obvious because it's a good, almond to eat. And katanim, but the small ones are pater because they haven't been able to basically fully grow. And Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yossi, Amar Mishumav, Zev Liftor, and so Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yossi said the name of his father. No, both of them are pater. And some say both of them are chayv, right? When it says about the ones that are marim, right, both of them are pater because one is because they're, they didn't grow yet and they're bitter. And the other one is because when they grow to full fruit, they are bitter, not edible. And the other one says, no, both are chayiv. So both are chayiv. So the large ones are chayiv and the small ones are chayiv. So Amar Rabbi Eli, Hora Rabbi Yechon b'tzipore, Kedivrei Omer Zev Liftor. And Rabbi Eli said, no, that he taught that in Tzipore, that like the opinion said that both of them are pater, the bitter ones are pater. I understand. According to the ones who said they're both chayiv, both the small and big ones, if they're bitter, they're chayiv. Why should the ones that are large ones be bitter? I understand the small ones, if they're bitter, be chayiv, because if they grow eventually full size, then they'll become a regular fruit, and therefore I should take ma'aser from. But if the large ones, they grow to be something very bitter and disgusting, then why should you be chayiv ma'aser? And on that, right? Since they can go ahead and be fixed through fire, right? Therefore, it makes them, since you can go ahead and heat them up and make them edible, therefore that's the reason why you take ma'aser. But that all runs true when you're talking about taking ma'aser or when you're talking about making a bracha. However, when it comes to an eruv, right? Eruv is something that needs to be able to eat on Shabbos, right? And you can't go ahead and heat them up or cook them up on Shabbos. So therefore, that's the reason why we said that these the non-maturing dates, right, are not fit for an eruv, right? Even though you can heat them up and make them edible then, but if you don't heat them up, they're readily available, it would not be permitted to go ahead and have. So Amar Mar, Rabbi Huda says, Kor harehu ke'etz l'chol dvarav, right? So he said this heart of palm is like wood when it comes to everything. Ela sheni gam b'kesem ma'aser, but you can go ahead and use kesem ma'aser sheni on it. I hani Tanakam. It's the same opinions of Tanakam. Both Tanakam both said that it is basically not considered to be food, except it's not tamei to masaychlin. Except you can go ahead and use it for kesem ma'aser sheni. Some Rabbi shalako v'tigno ikimanaya. So he says no. If you went ahead and you cooked it, or you put it in oil, you fried it, then that is the difference between them, right? In other words, one says, right, it's always wood. In other words, he holds that even in such a case, it's not considered to be anything. And then the opinion holds that no, if you change it by frying it, then it would be okay. So right? Is there someone who says even if you go ahead and you cook it up, right, it's still not considered to be a food? But Tani, or right? Hide and the shilya, right, and the sack of an animal, right, that's not considered to be food. However, if you went ahead and you had the hide, right, and then you cooked it, right, and then you want to go ahead and eat it, matami to masaychlin, you can go ahead. It is matami to masaychlin, so we see that it is food. So therefore, it's you see if you change it completely, if you cook it, right, l'chara that does turns it into food, especially if that was his intentions. Selamarava ikabanayu bracha, right? The difference between them is a bracha. See the itamar kor. When it comes to a kor, there's hard to palm. Rabbi Huda Omer bare priyadama. It's a bare priyadama. Ushmuel Amar shakol ne'bidvaro. Rabbi Huda Omer bare priyadama. Why? Uchlu, it's considered eichel. Ushmuel Amar shakol ne'bidvaro. He says no, it's shakol. Why? Since in the end, ultimately, it's going to go ahead and harden. If you don't go ahead and remove it, then you would not make a beret pri ha'adam. Fine. Now, speaking of brachas, Amar le Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Shinara Kavazek Mistav. It's more logical to say like you, the hot snow. Shesofo li kashais mevarchin le beret pri ha'adam. Right. So he says radish, which ultimately, if you don't go ahead and harvest them and take them out, they will become hard. And nevertheless, you make a beret pri ha'adama on radishes. However, velohi, It's not necessarily true, right? It's no, not to inchi adai to the pugla, right? People go ahead and they pick the radishes for the soft parts. So therefore, that's the reason why you rape adama. However, dikla lo not to inchi adai to the kura, right? People don't go ahead and they plant the palm trees for the purpose of the heart of palm. So therefore, maybe it's a difference. The Afagav, they call say Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, and even though Shmuel says, the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, Hilchasa Kavasi Shmuel. The halacha is like Shmuel. Gufa, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav Kshus, the chazis, marvin behen, as we mentioned earlier, the hops and chazis and green grain. You can go ahead and use it for an eruv. And you make a berepi adama on those foods. And kashut bekama. And how much do you have? Right, you have to have 2 meals. Now, obviously, when you go ahead and have 2 meals, right, for pepper for 2 meals is different than bread for 2 meals, or vice versa, right? So kashus, how much hops do you have to have? So kadama Rav Yechiel kamali hayat, a handful, and hakanami kamali hayat. And chazis bekama, and so he said over there, and how much you have of green grain. So Amar Rabbi Ratuvia Bar Yisrael Amar Rav Kamale Uzilsa Dikri, right? In other words, a bundle of farmers. Farmers take a full bundle. That is the amount of green grain. I guess a larger amount than obviously just a handful of the hop. And Amar Rav Chilkia Bar Tuvia Marvin Bekalya. You can also go ahead and use kalya for an eruv. So it says, the kalya, so kalya is very hard stock because you can't eat it, right? So Ella, the yarkid the kalya, rather the greens of the kalya, the comment how much is that? Once again a handful. And Rabbi Yirmiyah, Nafik le Kiryasa, one time he went out to the Kiryasa, to villages, and Bo Mine, and there's a question, Mahu la'arev b'pulin lachin. What is halacha when it comes to making eruv with pulin lachin, right? Wet or moist beans. Right, Lo Abiyah, he didn't know. So Kiasa the Beit Midrash, Amarli went in the base bench. He asked him, and he said to him, Amarli, he said to him, Hachem Rabbi Yanai Ma'arvin Pulin Lachin. You can go ahead and use moist beans. The comment how much? Amar Rabbi Chil Kamaliyad. Once again, he said a handful. And Amar Rabbi Nuna Marvin Betardin Chay. You can also go ahead and use for an eruv tardin, right? Beets, right? Raw beets. So can you use raw beets? So just turn the page to finish up in a minute. Understand? A raw beets, right, are not good for a person. You can even kill them. Very dangerous. It's not good for a person. So Gemara says no. That over there is referring to something basically which is sort of cooked. All right, and you can't go ahead and use raw beets for an eruv because it's very dangerous. And the Rav Chisa silka chaya katel gaver chaya, because raw beets will kill a raw or a live person. I always see people that eat raw beets and they have not died. So over there wasn't raw; it was partially cooked. And Rav Chisa says Rav Chisa tavshel shatradin, if you have a cooked beets, go ahead and cook it really well, and then it's good for the heart and good for the eyes. But and certainly for his intestines and Abaye, and it says in Abaye and that Abe Tafi Vavdi Tuch. That's what you stand next to it and it makes the noise Tuch. I guess it means that's like it's already making noise. It's from the fire to tell you that it's fully cooked. All right, we'll stop here. So tomorrow 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then we'll see how far we can get. And then obviously we have to prepare this week to try and get 2 blot ahead to make up for next week, right? I'm always there. So when we get closer, we'll have to start making up. But right now, tomorrow, 7 a.m. Everyone have a wonderful day, and see you guys at 8:30 Shachars. Bye-bye.